Cadet Rachel Kim had made peace with being mediocre. In a class of 100 elite military cadets from across the Terran Coalition, ranking 97th meant she'd barely scraped through every examination. Her marksmanship was average, her tactical scores were passable, and her physical performance was consistently described as adequate. The top-ranked cadets, brilliant specimens like Marcus Chen and Sofia Rodriguez, were destined for command positions on humanity's finest warships. Rachel would probably end up on a supply freighter, managing inventory spreadsheets for the rest of her career. She was fine with that. Not everyone could be exceptional. The Xenobiology Research Station orbiting Kepler 442b was supposed to be a routine training exercise. 1 week observing the containment protocols for the galaxy's most dangerous predator species, the apex. Standing 3 meters tall with adaptive camouflage, regenerative capabilities, and a hunting intelligence that had wiped out 2 colony worlds before specimens were captured, the apex represented humanity's greatest xenobiological threat. Remember? Instructor Vance told the assembled cadets. The containment field is rated for Class X threats. Nothing gets through those barriers. You're here to observe and learn, nothing more. Rachel stood in the back of the group, taking notes, while Chen asked insightful questions about the Apex's neural structure and Rodriguez discussed optimal kill zone tactics with the research staff. Rachel just wrote down the basics: containment field strength, emergency protocol locations, evacuation route markers. The boring stuff that top-ranked cadets didn't bother memorizing because they assumed someone else would handle it. The alarm started as a low pulse, then escalated to a shrieking wail that sent the research staff into immediate panic. On the observation screens, the impossible happened. The apex containment field flickered, stuttered, and collapsed. 3 apex specimens, each capable of killing dozens of armed soldiers, were loose in the station. Instructor Vance immediately took command. All cadets, emergency protocol Delta 7. We evacuate to the shuttle bay while station security handles containment. The cadets moved as trained, following their instructor toward the primary evacuation route. Rachel glanced at the station schematic on her datapad, the same boring map she'd studied while other cadets were socializing, and her blood went cold. Wait! She shouted. That route goes through the specimen storage level. Cadet Kim, this is not the time for. The lights in the corridor ahead exploded in a shower of sparks. An apex materialized from the shadows, its adaptive camouflage dropping as it prepared to strike. The creature had predicted their evacuation route and positioned itself perfectly for an ambush. Vance raised his sidearm, but Rachel was already moving. Not forward toward the threat, but backward, grabbing the instructor's arm. Secondary maintenance shaft, 40 meters back. It bypasses the specimen level entirely. That's not an approved evacuation route, Chen protested, but he was already backing up because the apex was advancing, and the primary corridor was a death trap. Rachel didn't argue. She just ran, and years of being ignored had taught her that sometimes you act first and explain later. The cadets followed, because when death is 15 feet away and someone has a plan, any plan, you follow. She led them through corridors she'd memorized out of boredom during the orientation. While other cadets had been networking and discussing career prospects, Rachel had been reading maintenance schedules and emergency systems documentation because she had nothing better to do. Left here, she called out, pulling open a service panel. This connects to the environmental control junction. From there we can reach the secondary shuttle bay. There is no secondary shuttle bay, Rodriguez said, but she was climbing through the panel because staying in the corridor meant dying. There is for maintenance crews, Rachel replied. It's not rated for full evacuation, but it'll fit our group. They crawled through spaces that weren't designed for human traffic, ducking under coolant pipes and squeezing past power conduits. Behind them, the Apex were systematically hunting through the station, but they were following standard evacuation routes, expecting prey to behave predictably. Rachel's route was anything but predictable. She led them past the primary computer core. Too obvious, they'll guard it. And around the medical bay. Injured prey attracts predators. Every decision was based on information she'd absorbed, while being the cadet nobody noticed, reading technical manuals while others practiced leadership speeches. When they reached the maintenance shuttle bay, Chin stared at her with something like revelation. You knew this entire time. You knew every backup system, every alternative route. I read the station documentation, Rachel said simply, powering up the shuttle. All of it. The parts nobody else thought were important. Why? Vance asked as the shuttle lifted off and Rachel navigated through a docking sequence that wasn't in any official manual. Why memorize all of this? Rachel focused on the controls, guiding them away from the station as emergency beacons lit up across the hull. Because I'm not the best shot. I'm not the fastest runner. I'm not going to win any tactical simulations. She glanced back at her classmates, all 96 of them who'd outranked her, who were alive because she'd read the boring manual. But I figured out a long time ago that battles aren't won by the people who are best in normal conditions. They're won by the people who know what to do when everything goes wrong. The shuttle cleared the station's emergency cordon as Coalition warships arrived to handle containment. In the passenger section, the top-ranked cadets sat in stunned silence, realizing that their carefully cultivated skills had been useless when the situation deviated from textbook scenarios. Instructor Vance moved to the cockpit, studying Rachel with new appreciation. Cadet Kim, about your ranking. Still 97th, sir, Rachel said. I know my test scores. Test scores measure how well you perform in controlled conditions, Vance replied. But I just watched you save 100 lives using knowledge that nobody else thought was worth learning. That's not mediocrity. That's a different kind of excellence. 6 months later, when the Coalition reorganized its command structure after the Apex incident, they created a new position, Crisis Response Specialist. Officers who didn't need to be the best in normal circumstances, but who had the particular genius of knowing what to do when nothing went according to plan. Rachel Kim was the first person selected for the program. She accepted with the same quiet competence she'd always shown, already reading the technical manual for her new assignment, while her former classmates wondered how the 97th ranked cadet had become one of the most valuable officers in the fleet. She could have told them, excellence isn't about being the best at everything. Sometimes it's about being the only one who read the emergency protocols.